Hey, everybody, welcome to the RF Frontiers podcast. Today, we've got something special for you. We're asking a couple of very specific questions. You know, most of the time we're out here, we're at technology in the RF business. We're talking to entrepreneurs and that sort of thing on our podcast. Today, we're looking at something for the operational folks and the quality folks and even the CEOs. And the questions we're asking are surrounding ISO 9001, quality management systems, and even AS9100. This is something that if you are in sales and marketing, if you are a CEO, if you're a quality manager, you know that this is something that's put before us all the time. But for a small company, it's a very, very big expense, relatively speaking. So the question is, do I get certified, depending on my business, in ISO 9001? And if I'm an ISO 9001 client or certified company, do I take the next step and get certified in AS9100? What are the pros and cons? Is it worth it to me? What's driving that? All these different things that we want to just kind of explore with you today with my co-hosts, Sean Wallace from Spectra Lab and Ariel Carlson. Hey, folks.
Chuck. All right. Excited to talk about this today.
Is anybody really ever excited to talk about quality management systems?
I'm excited to be the controversial counterpoint.
And I do think that there is a lot of, I'm not sure if it rises to the level of controversy, but there's certainly disagreement on this.
Yeah.
It's one thing if you're a large company. Mm-hmm. It's kind of easy in a sense. You just kind of go with the team decision and you roll with it and you spend the money as a cost of doing business. The smaller the company, the greater proportion that cost is. We really have to consider the return on investment for these things very, very wisely. But there is a foundational aspect that's crucial. Yeah. And why don't we start there? Let's start about the foundational aspect.
Let's just kind of talk about what a QMS is, right? And then we can get into 9001 and 9100. So we were looking at some opportunities recently that were out for public bid. It wasn't really anything we were involved in the sales cycle, but they were out for public bid and they had the ISO 9001 requirement on it. And you came across it and that's kicked off a conversation between us. What do we have ISO 9001? Should we have it?
What is it?
You know, what is it? Why, is it a problem that we don't have it? Right. Yeah. That was kind of the conversation. And Ariel, of course, is very customer focused on she's really tuned into what do customers actually want to pay for, right? And that's because that's really the marketing role. But what were some of the questions you had about 9001 or QMS?
Obviously, I had to understand and learn the difference between the two. But really just understanding the benefit for a small company. Obviously, my point of view is from our small business, and each of our customers are very specific, and we're not necessarily selling a whole bunch all the time to the same repeated customer base. And so is it worth the cost and time, or do our end users even require it? And if they do, why? Mm-hmm. And also understanding, for me, it was, if we have our own, as a small business, we pride ourselves on our brand and our trust and our quality to even get into a sales cycle. So not really understanding why needing an additional requirement when that's something that we've already worked so hard to have our end user use us for because of our high standards and quality. And so not really understanding the need for that, obviously, for us, by each customer's own standards and requirements.
I think it's a really key point from that marketing angle, because on the marketing and sales side, for us, for our business, we frequently are going and showing the product to the customer, the actual product to the customer before they buy, right? So from the marketing and sales standpoint, you might say, why in the world, they saw the product, they decided they want it. Why is there this new thing injected in the end?
Right. And also because we're pretty transparent throughout the entire process of everything that we do. So having such transparency, I don't know, to me it seems seems kind of counterintuitive to have that requirement placed on you from someone who you've already shown that you have all of those.
I mean, maybe it feels a little bit like a bait and switch.
Yeah.
Right? So for us, our sales cycles are 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. We've even had 2-year sales cycles.
Yeah.
So you're suffering through a 2-year sales cycle, right? You've built up this trust. The customer has seen the product. And then the contracting officer gets a hold of it 24 months later,
Yeah.
and they slap ISO 9000 on there or something, or AS9100, and it's like, wait a minute. This is like a bait and switch. We've had an ongoing productive relationship for 2
everyone,
years,
for us, and
now you're changing the terms.
yeah, for us, and I feel like the engineers
engineer.
who we have built these relationships with, because
Right.
they've also invested time in
Right.
understanding us and trusting us.
I think we can all recognize that it's important for a company to have a QMS, some way to manage quality, right? I don't think anybody's arguing that point. Specifically on the manufacturing side, right? I could argue whether or not QMS is appropriate on the engineering side when you're trying to innovate and do risky things, right? But on the manufacturing side, clearly we want to produce a reliable product exactly the same every time. That's the entire point of manufacturing. So nobody's arguing the necessity of a QMS on the manufacturing side.
Yeah.
I think the argument or the discussion is around, should we allow, or does it make sense for a customer to define what that QMS is, whether it's ISO 9001 or AS9100? And also, both of us, all of us, are selling to corporations and buying teams, not individuals.
Right.
So the other interesting part is, like, if you have a relationship with an end user engineer, one or two engineers, and you've been through this sales cycle for 6, 12, 18, 24 months, what, does it, I'm not going to use the word fair because, fair is a feeling, not a real thing, but how do you handle it when somebody who's new to the relationship 24 months in comes in and says, oh, now what, I have a new requirement? How do you handle that? And is there a way to convince the customer that, that's not actually a requirement that anybody cares about?
Let's start to break this down. I think you've laid this out really, really well. Now, let's get something straight. I'm not going to position myself as the number one expert on ISO 9001 or AS9100. I'm speaking from experience, having worked as a manufacturer for pretty much all of my career in operations, quality management systems, and even all the way back to Navy nuclear work. Was 1989 was my first time getting involved in this. I'm not trying to position an expert, but we're further along in the process than you are.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I think that, but yet we're at an inflection point ourselves. So we have a decision to make as well. And you started out with, I took a lot of notes here, and why would you do this in the first place? Mm-hmm. And I think that as transparent as a company is, wants to be, and demonstrates, there's still a risk. There's still a lot of unknowns. I think that I've found that as I've done all these things and worked with customers, I suffer from the curse of knowledge. I understand me perfectly. I know exactly what's going on over here. Even though I may or may not have, communicated it effectively, it's very possible that they only picked up a portion of what I communicated, or that they didn't fully infer everything that I was intending.
Yeah.
And so, as transparent as I am, they may not have picked up everything I was laying down,
Right.
if you will. And
About the quality of the product or the features of the product or whatever.
Well, anything, but certainly in the context of this, the quality. Let's call it the quality management system. But it comes down to, if a company is, in a sense, I'm risking my reputation by specifying this company.
Yeah, and you use the word risk, which means, which to me, my head immediately says, oh, ISO 9001 is an insurance policy, right?
Well, let's be clear. ISO 9001 is a framework.
Yeah,
but in essence, it's for the customer, the potential customer, it could be inferred or interpreted as an insurance policy.
Right.
For them, they've invested in this system that says, I am more comfortable that as things change, they're going to make sure that they dot the I's, cross the T's, and follow procedures that ensures that I'm going to be cared for.
Right.
We come from two different perspectives in terms of product. Yours is an exact fit solution that can change over time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
Okay. So as it changes, even if they only buy one product and it lasts for decades, it's potentially going to change over time. Do you have a design control process to make sure that you're following some sort of engineering methodology, design methodology that's going to ensure that it's rigorous, it's tested, it's robust, it's repeatable? That same thing that we're talking, that could be software. So it's not just necessarily manufacturing, although supplying software as part of a physical product is part of manufacturing.
Yeah.
Versus somebody like us who does RF cable assemblies, where they're going to buy it, and frankly, the cable assemblies get used, they break, they're thrown out, they wear out over time, so they're going to come back again. Is the product that I bought 5 years ago going to be of similar conformance, compliance, and workmanship 5 years later?
Right.
Can I count on that?
So it's an assurance
So
of
it is.
repeatability. Yeah.
It is. I like the way you state that as an insurance policy, if you will. So I believe it really centers around risk. And in fact, early on in the manufacturing, the quality management systems, regardless of manufacturing or service, they didn't pay as much attention to risk. However, risk has bubbled to the surface and become a firm requirement of the quality management systems, most notably ISO 9001 and AS9100.
Right.
And so it's not only for the customers, that insurance policy, if you will, because I really like that phrase, but it's for you to consider risk in things that you do as you execute your business. That's a little nebulous,
Yeah.
but as we consider investments, as we consider design changes, even, what's the risk? It could be supply chain risk. It could be any number of things. So that's become more and more part of the whole quality management philosophy, if you will.
Yeah, I think the part, though, that is tough to swallow is, and I think I'm right, I think I'm not mistaken about this, these formalized, so if we have our own QMS for manufacturing, right? If we're not doing ISO 9001, but we've come up with our own QMS, which we have actually, and it's different for manufacturing and engineering, right? So, and the problem I kind of see with ISO 9001 is for an organization that is doing manufacturing and engineering, and the engineering needs to be very innovative and take risks on purpose, right? We're not taking risks in manufacturing usually, but we do need to take risks in engineering, absolutely. And so when you sign up for ISO 9001, as I understand it, you can't say, well, we're ISO 9001, but only for the manufacturing side. You're all in, right?
Yeah, that was going to be my question, is if you're trying to be innovative in engineering, and especially for us being exact fit instruments, we're constantly doing that, or we're changing things to meet requirements that someone who might already have an instrument wants to update. How does that work if you're certified? Are you still certified if you're changing things?
If you're in the engineering department, you say, you know what, I need to do this proof of concept thing really quick, and it's going to be risky, and it may not work out, and I might waste a bunch of money. Is there a shortcut in ISO 9001 that says, hey,
It
you know what?
allows you to do that and stay still certified.
Right.
Yeah.
Because to me, that the all-in aspect of, you got to be in engineering and manufacturing has a potential to tamp down what our customers actually want.
Right. And
which
then
is innovation.
Then we're not going to be doing exact fit.
Right.
I think the interesting part, and I believe that there's a misnomer when it comes to these quality management systems. I can absolutely 100% name names, but a dear friend, Mike, you know who you are. We work together at a very, very large corporate conglomerate, once thought to be the largest company in the world, certainly the largest as a function of publicly held securities. I remember it like it was yesterday. We actually worked together, and I suggested that we do something. I don't remember what that something was, but I will never forget his response. And I quote, "Dude, can't ISO."
Right. That's the phrase that keeps me up.
And you know what? And it should. And it was so impactful to me. First of all, because he's my friend. Second of all, because of the way he said it. And third of all, I believe it's a misnomer of this, is that ISO 9001 is a framework, if you will. There are certain best practices, but you still write your quality management system. And people believe that it's completely inflexible. And the truth be told, if you write your quality management system, you can build flexibility into your quality management system and your processes.
Right.
And then you can become, as part of your certification process, which really you're being certified to your procedures and the best practices in the international standards. So there are ways to write that in. The procedures are truly yours because every organization is truly unique.
Right.
But to simplify it, right, if you're going to maintaining rev control, okay, is there a design process, a design change process? Is it executed? Is it checked? Is it approved? And do you maintain separate revs and good record keeping?
See, my question on that would be, well, can I have an out for the engineering prototype where I want to create a new software branch in 30 seconds, right, and try something out quickly without going through a formal change control, right? That would be my question, is like, Is there a loophole that says, doesn't apply if we're just doing a quick and dirty test?
I do believe there is. You write it down. You don't document until you've, frankly, accepted a design. If you're, what you discussed in software is very much like the way someone works in a mechanical design or an electrical design. I'll use mechanical design as an example because most folks easily comprehend that and get it, as opposed to RF simulation. I'm going to work with a solid model, and I'm going to do a whole lot of playing and arranging and building geometry. Okay, that design's not locked until I say it's locked. Mm-hmm. And then I can take that and I can lock it and I can call that. And oftentimes in revision control, document control parlance, they might put that as a Rev 0, which means it's a draft. Mm-hmm. And you'll go 0, 1, 2, 3, et cetera, until you get to a full release, in which case it'll become Rev A. Yep. That's a way of doing it. But by the way, I've seen so many drawings from so many different companies. Trust me, they all potentially do their Rev control different.
Yep.
Yet many of them are certified in international standard for quality management system.
Right.
So while you're playing, while you're doing that stuff, you can totally do it. You can go out and do your R&D and have that process. Once you commit designs, though, especially when they're going to move on to a customer, that's when the rubber really hits the road.
Yeah, well, that's what we would call a release in our QMS.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. So, but you decide those things. It's what is the deliverables to the customer? What are they going to look like? Once you've got a release and you're going to go back and you're going to change that, once again, your release B is still your release B, period. Now I can take B and I can go play with it off here all I want. I can do something with design. I can do something with software, whatever that may be. You go off, take it aside, play with it. You may never commit to a release C until you decide to. And once you commit to release C, you have the documentation, you have the review, you have the approval. It's gone through what you need to be sure that release C meets your standards and ultimately the standards of the customer.
Yeah, I think the challenge, that all makes sense when we talk about it right now. The challenge is that you don't scare your employees into the place where they're saying things like your friend said. I think
Dude, can't ISO. Yep.
Yeah. God, what a nightmare. Right? So there's this culture challenge where, there may be a way to be innovative with ISO, right? And we can document that. But then you have this follow-up challenge in making sure that your culture doesn't calcify into people using, I don't know if your friend was using ISO, if he was lamenting the fact he couldn't do it, or if he was using it as an excuse. I'm not sure. Right? Because it could go either way. But my nightmare is people using ISO as an excuse for why they can't do an innovative thing, right? So I think you really have to be on guard for a culture that goes awry, and using ISO as an excuse for why you can't do things that customers actually want.
And that is a pitfall.
And that
100% a pitfall, but
Yeah.
that is an issue within the culture of the company, in my opinion, near humble as it may be.
You can go off on this whole tangent about building culture in a small company, right? But man, when you're a small company, building culture from day one, that's like the most important thing, right? Because the company is just going to vector from that initial culture. You know?
Absolutely.
How often, when you're certified, do you have to get recertified?
So that's actually very straightforward. So your initial certification is going to be what's known as a major audit. Okay. And in that major audit, you will have a number of different things. You will have findings, you'll have opportunities for improvement, and you will then, upon successful completion, you'll get things that they're going to want you to change or improve, and then you will get your certificate, and that is your initial. Then you will get an annual, which is a subset of a major audit. Typically, they're going to come in, they're going to audit a part of what your processes are. And your auditor will typically tell you what they're going to do. We're going to look at your order process, or we're going to look at order to cash, or we're going to look at your engineering design control, or you're going to look at your quality process, your return process, or something to that effect. So you know that. And they will do that subset once a year. And your major audit cycle is every 3 years. So you will then get a full audit 3 years later. Right. So the cost is more for the major and the certification, and then you'll get the minor. Obviously, the cost is a subset of that. It's a lower volume. Just for argument's sake, and I'm just literally pulling numbers out of the air here, I'm certain there's a portion of it that might depend on the company. But if it's $45,000 or $50,000 to get your major audit and maybe $15,000 for your minor audit. It used to be that it was always in person. Nowadays, they're starting to do them actually remote, or sometimes it could be depending on the certifying body, that company. It could depend on the auditor, but they're actually doing them remote, where you spend a lot of day on Zoom or Teams.
So it's one thing for you to say it's expensive and it costs a lot of resources, and I don't know that that really communicates the full impact, right? Because now we also have, for us, anybody in DoD, we got CMMC, which also has an audit cycle, right? So if you have a couple different requirements, maybe you have ISO 9001, maybe you have CMMC, maybe you have, I don't know anything about PCI, but other businesses have other regulatory compliances, certainly medical, food, PCI, there's all kinds of compliance. As a small business, if you buy into enough of these things, you could be doing an audit every single year, right? So it's one thing to say, oh, we got to, it's expensive, we have to write a check. But it's another thing to think about your employees being tied up doing auditing stuff every year.
I'm going to make it worse for you. Sorry, it's worse than that.
Right.
And that's so what I was talking about is the fees to the certifying body.
Yeah.
There's the internal costs.
Yeah.
And the opportunity costs of what they could be doing instead.
The opportunity cost is what keeps me up.
But so you are, if you just buy into ISO 9001, you are doing an audit every year.
Yeah.
And by the way, you're probably doing internal audits at least once a year. In the interim, possibly more, depending on your procedures and your needs. Now, those you don't bring in another outside person, so you're not incurring a service fee, but you are incurring that time that is spent by your team.
Right. So, like, for me as a business owner, I think, man, if I'm going to tie up my team doing several audits a year, this better be something that customers actually want. And that it's not just something a contracting officer threw onto the contract, right? They have to actually want it, or we have to feel that it's making our product offering better and making the next sale easier.
Growing,
right? And if you look back to your original point, right? Well, should we invest that? Again, I'm not even going to say money. Should we invest that employee focus and energy into audits for all these programs, or should we invest that money in building strong brand trust, right? And investing in trust relationships with people, and that's a core question of how do we invest to keep our customers happiest, and not invest just to check some box. I mean that's so fundamental, so fundamental.
And unfortunately, it can become a checking some box, but it really comes down to ROI, does it not? I'm going to invest this money. It's not just money; it's also time spent. It's you're investing. Once you decide you're doing this, you are setting aside that time into perpetuity.
Yeah, right.
It's very difficult to go back. Although I can share a story of considered going back, or certainly staying and ignoring the future, and we'll come back to that in a little bit. It really is a big deal. You have to determine for yourself whether it's actually going to pay.
Yeah.
The Ariel had talked about something before, and you had talked about the sales cycle being long and it feeling like a bait and switch. For a new company, for a new entrepreneur, for someone who's not initiated into this and is not familiar with it, it can very much feel like that. And my opinion is that when you're dealing with that, and they kind of assume you are initiated into this quality management club, if you will. And that's why it can feel like a bait and switch. Wait, you don't know about that?
Yeah.
You're a business owner.
Well,
I'm a new business owner.
There's a lot of stuff like that in federal contracting, man. I mean, that is, God, it's left and right. So many things, whether it's the reseller channel, which could be a whole separate episode, or credit terms, or flow downs. Oh my goodness, we could talk about that for 2 hours.
Well,
we thought you knew.
The FARs, the Federal Acquisition Regulations. I mean, our contracts, the flow down we get. I mean, it's a list.
Well, I think
it is a list.
I was sharing a purchase order with somebody the other day. So we had gotten a large award from the Navy last year, and it flew through a reseller channel. So I was showing the PO to a partner, a financial partner, and he said, well, let me see the PO for this big order. And I gave him the PO. It was one piece of paper. It was a one-page. I printed it out. He said, this is it? This is a contract? I said, yeah. I said, it has the price, and then has a paragraph at the bottom that says, the entire FAR flows down. I said,
that is really innovative just in itself. Boy,
right.
How many trees did you save?
Right, exactly. So
when you start to repeat this over and over.
Right, they wrote a one-page purchase order for a huge amount of money, and then just said, plus the entire FAR. So,
hard to argue. You figure out the rest.
You figure out the rest, man. Good luck with that. Yeah.
And each of us do, whether we like it or not.
Yes. Again, we could have a whole different conversation, but in a lot of ways, the federal government needs us to take those risks, right? The federal government needs us to look at the core FAR clauses and know the basics and know what the customer wants, but maybe kind of close our eyes on some other stuff, right? There's crazy stuff in there, right, about conflict minerals and all kinds of stuff in the supply chain that really, they just don't apply to the current acquisition.
Well, it is a whole different conversation, and we're not going to go down that tangent because, oh boy, you're right, we could. But it is the same concept. It feels like it's checking a box.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Interestingly enough, speaking of checking a box, I will tell you that having filled out many of these vendor approval forms, when you say, I need you to fill out this form or this survey so that I can get you into our system.
Yes. We have one of those. People even, we have that.
That would be part of your quality management system.
Right.
Right?
Right.
It's really humorous in a sense because our industry revolves around ISO 9001 and AS9100. And which of these apply? You're an ISO 9001 company, AS9100, MIL-I 45208. I think there's another ISO 14001, don't quote me, world.
Yep.
Or other.
Yep.
And then if you choose other, sometimes they're electronic. And if you choose other, they say, well, if you didn't choose any of these others, do you have this? And 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 do you have this? That essentially goes through all the parts of a basic quality management system. And in so doing, you essentially, if you have that covered, you can become, depending on the company, depending on their quality management system and how they approve vendors, you could become a vendor.
Right.
And even though you don't have ISO 9001, you could do MIL-I 4528, which is specifically Navy nuclear, only because a small part of your business was Navy nuclear, right? But, oh, well, you have the stuff, you have the stuff.
Yeah.
We're not Navy nuclear, we the customer, but you're following the basic rules, if you will, of workmanship, conformance, and compliance.
I saw an example of that yesterday. I was on a vendor site. It was an EMS, like a contract electronics manufacturer, and they had put under their certifications like that they were qualified to share export control data with the Canadians. It was some random thing, right?
Let's not even get into the ITAR and export licenses.
Right.
Another issue altogether.
That is a whole different issue. Although I have to say, getting the ITAR number is very easy. Very, very easy to get the ITAR number. You just write a check.
Yeah, right. Over and over again, depending on your business.
That's right. Being compliant may be different, but anyway.
It is sort of checking a box to them, if you will, if I can backtrack. That just like, are you a small business? Are you a small disadvantaged business? Are you a woman-owned small business? Are you in a hub zone? Are you a certified woman-owned small business, et cetera, et cetera?
Yes.
The more the check boxes that you can check off, the easier it is for the supply chain to say, yes, you're an approved vendor.
But do you think, though, that a lot of those check boxes are crutches for companies who can't differentiate any other way?
100%.
Yeah. So I see this in the federal government. So we don't do IT services, but I see a lot of opportunities out there, and I've looked at some of these IT services contracts. If you're in IT services and you're just saying, I'm selling labor to you, the feds, and they're going to do IT stuff, very, very hard to differentiate. How can you differentiate? Say, oh, my guys are really smart, right? So they lean on a lot of these certifications, whether it's ISO 9000 or a lot of these other things, to differentiate because it's the only way they can differentiate something that's very commoditized. And maybe the government wants an excuse to choose a particular vendor, right? And they want a reason to choose, and those check boxes are a shortcut. Again, back to the marketing thing, I wonder to the extent that these random certifications are like an easy cheat to differentiate when you can't figure out how to actually differentiate.
Right, which is why I think have a bad taste for it.
Right.
Because we pride ourselves in that,
We
and
do.
we work really hard in that. And we also have repeating clients who we haven't had to do any of that because they already believe and trust that in us. Because in my own life, I think for me, just dumbing it down, I go to Target and I shop at Target because I believe everything about them and how they do everything, and I believe in their quality without having to be like, oh, are you certified? I don't really care. I'm still going to buy from you.
Right.
So for us, we have clients like that. So it seems like it's just an extra step, again, for a different department to put into, either for companies to differentiate themselves who don't know how to, or to just add in extra steps.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're a running enthusiast, and you've told me before about how you kind of obsess over finding the perfect running shoe.
Yeah. Yep.
And you're not going to choose a running shoe based on ISO 9001
no,
manufacturing.
No.
You're choosing it based on brand reputation. I think.
The quality, testing it,
Personal experience,
reviews,
Social
things
proof.
like that. Social proof. Yep.
Yeah.
Which obviously I understand these certifications for companies, but I do think for us, it's very, again, it's very circumstantial. Is it worth it? What kind of sale are we making? Makes a big difference in the time and the money that we're going to be investing in it as a small business, because we don't have like a large corporation to just be like, okay, we're going to throw this amount of money over here and do it, or
focus,
focus. Our employees are going to focus on simply this for however long.
Right, exactly. I have a confession to make.
Uh-oh.
Before I got serious about marketing in this company, and before I hired you, I'm pretty sure I thought about ISO 9001 as a way to differentiate. And now I can see how wrong that was.
For us.
Well, I have a story that I tell often, and that is that when I talk to salespeople, I've trained salespeople, I've hired and trained manufacturers reps, and I listen. I've had salespeople calling me, and I say, okay, so basically you get to the conversation, point of conversation. Why you? Why am I choosing your stuff? And they go, well, we make a quality product. Well, you better.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
That's table stakes, man.
Necessary but not sufficient. That's one of my favorite sayings.
Exactly. Yeah. But backing up the Target example and the running shoes example in particular.
Yeah.
Let's just say, and I equate the big company, or I'll say the well organized company, even though they may or may not be particularly large, as a parent in a way. I just say I have this amazingly diligent, highly intelligent child who's interested in a pair of running shoes. And that person has a particular goal in mind, and he or she has a very analytical mind, and they're very thoughtful and considerate. And they do their research. And let's not say they're 9 or 10. Let's say they're 17. Okay. At some point, they're going to do all of that research. And they're going to hand it over to mom and dad and say, Mom, Dad, I want to buy these shoes.
Oh, yes. I like this.
It's still coming out of mom and dad's bank account, credit card, however you pay for it.
Well, not in our household, but I know. But yes.
Well, that's another episode once again. Stay tuned for that one. He'll have another confession.
Well, I mean, for my son. I mean, my daughter
I was
obviously.
going to say this.
Yeah, she obviously has free clothes, but for my son, there's no free clothes.
But now the mom or dad is going to say, okay, show me.
Yeah.
Right.
Everyone is Missouri. Everyone's the show me state. Show me.
So
but there's that checkbox. There's that insurance policy, Sean, that says, well, they're ISO 9001, and that means that they've been through rigorous testing, et cetera, however that equates to running shoes. Okay. And say, okay, so it raises my confidence. At least I'm not buying something that's made out of, balsa wood and duct tape.
In this case, there is a buying team for the shoe. It's the kid and the parent. That's the buying team. And the buying team different members have different requirements, right?
Just as there are different buying influences at every company.
Yeah.
There's your engineering buying influence. There's your actual purchasing buying influence. There's the quality team buying influence. There's the user actually buying influence. And there's the CEO or the program manager or that leader. Now, in any given company, a person or team can assume multiple buying influences. In the case of the running shoes, Ariel is the engineer, the user, et cetera, et cetera.
It's true.
Mom and or dad is the buyer and the CEO.
Yeah.
And ultimately they can veto it, and Ariel can kick the ground and go run off to a room and say, I hate you.
Right.
Right? That doesn't happen in business, but
Kind of.
does it?
That kind of does.
Okay. So, and again, yes, mom and dad have to look at something because they don't want to go have to repeat all that research.
Yeah.
And so they are looking at a checkbox
Yeah.
in order to simplify their work.
Right. So
I'm not defending anyone.
Yeah.
It's just a statement of the current situation.
Pragmatic statement. I think another way to say that is that if you're not meeting the needs of I'm going to say that the parent is the program manager in defense. Mm-hmm. If you're not meeting the ISO 9001 checkbox or the AS9100 checkbox need of the program manager, then you're relying on your engineer to really be a good salesman and overcome that program manager's objection, right?
Yep.
And we know how good engineers are at sales. So maybe the argument is that even if these formalized QMSs don't improve the product and are very expensive, they're required in order to get past certain gatekeepers.
They are.
Maybe if some of those gatekeepers are extremely powerful, right? I would argue that a contract officer is not actually a powerful gatekeeper.
I'm not going on record as saying that. I think it's a good segue because you're coming at this from a perspective where you're not there. You want to understand, you're trying to make a decision whether to embark on this from your own quality management system onto a certified quality management system.
Right. Yep.
Where we've been in the latter position for quite some time. Mm-hmm. And I have only operated in companies that have been in the latter position.
Yeah, but
my whole career.
And you're very much a manufacturer, 90% manufacturing company.
I'm a manufacturing guy.
Yeah,
without a doubt.
Whereas we're like 50-50 engineering manufacturing. Yeah.
However, because we're dealing with increasingly large companies with whom you deal as well,
Yep.
they work in the aerospace market.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And even though you might have a company like a Northrop Grumman or a Lockheed Martin, let's say Northrop Grumman, who works in aerospace, and they are an AS9100 certified system or company. And you may be working on the ship side, not the aerospace side, or it's aerospace and defense. They still have AS9100. And it flows down. There's that checkbox again. And it flows down from them to the tier 2 supplier, to the tier 3 supplier, to, I would say we're about a tier 3 supplier, maybe a tier 4, depending on the situation. And they say, well, I don't care. It's your requirement. You just got to do it. And then we're at an inflection point. So now we say, oh, well, we're already there. We're doing all this great stuff. Well, when you do AS9100, there's quite a bit more emphasis on risk. There's quite a bit more emphasis on product safety, traceability, all the way back to the mine in some cases, so that you know that these materials are going to be good. And it's really about what happens if an airplane falls out of the sky.
Right.
Let's really get real about it. That's what it's about. We're going to do one heck of an extensive investigation to figure that out.
Yeah.
Of course, it's a lot more than that. I'm not trying to undersell or not give it the credit that it's due.
Yeah.
But to just compress it into a podcast episode. But does that really apply to RF cables? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And we've literally had customers do this.
Yeah.
And they say, well, you've got to be AS9100. And as God is my witness, we had a customer who left. Mm-hmm. They fired themselves. Mm-hmm. And then other factors became evident to them. And we had nothing to do with it. We let them go. Mm-hmm. We said, you get to run your business your way. We love you. We'll always help you.
Yep.
Other factors became evident to them. And they came back. So the contracting authority and the quality department, they do have a great deal of influence. They very definitely do. But at some point, I always say economics always wins, which is not just price. Being able to actually get product, being able to actually do delivery schedules, things like that. And they say, well, we knew we could get the stuff before when we were working with Coaxis. Okay. So let's go back to them.
Right.
And we'll figure out how to work with them.
So
That's a real story. I will never name names. That's unprofessional and immoral.
No, of course.
But it's real.
Yeah, no, of course. But I think you got lucky in that they had that prior experience with you, right?
Agreed.
So somehow you managed to like build that relationship and that brand trust with that customer.
Trust, right?
Before this, somebody threw this AS9100 thing in there. And so when they were second thinking their commitment to AS9100 on this particular part, they fell back on brand trust because they already had a relationship with you. So they got lucky and you got lucky that you'd met each other before AS9100 came into the picture. So I wonder how many customers out there, right, have AS9100 as a requirement when they first go out to find a new vendor and are just narrowing the scope of their vendors so much that they're missing out on innovation, price, shorter lead times, whatever it is.
Absolutely, positively.
There's potentially a huge opportunity cost that these people are giving themselves by narrowing their vendor field so much.
And the narrowing the vendor field thing happens, I've seen it numerous times with numerous companies, and as they go through these ups and downs of the company maturity and life cycle, they add vendors, they add vendors, they add vendors. Oh, we've got too many vendors, it's too confusing. We need to actively consolidate our vendors, consolidate our vendors, consolidate our vendors.
Yeah.
And you find yourself on the outs.
Yeah.
But now imagine if you're a small company early on and you've got 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 customers, and you're just getting started. Yes, you don't have the brand trust, you don't have the brand recognition, you don't have as much of the customer experience. It gets a lot harder to say no, doesn't it?
Yes.
You know,
for
I
sure.
need, it's existential.
Any small company's been there. Yeah.
Right. I need this revenue. I hate this. I don't think it applies to me, but it's truly an existential decision.
Yep.
And is there going back?
That's a whole different conversation about being your own destiny or charting your own course and charting your own destiny when you're running a small business and being responsive to customers, but not allowing them to pull you too far away from your vision when you're desperate for revenue. Anyway, that's a whole different conversation.
Yeah, it is.
That is
but
so
it
tempting. So tempting.
Well, we'll just other conversations, other days.
Yeah.
There'll be many episodes of the RF Frontiers podcast, without a doubt, because I know we're all enjoying this. But it really does come back to the decisions that we have to make as SMB, RF entrepreneurs, and these things apply to non-RF as well.
Yep.
Isn't that why we're focusing on the audience we're focusing on, Sean?
Yes, absolutely. That's exactly why we're doing it. And I think too that one of the things that we're trying to do here, right, is if you go out and you research some of these topics on the internet, you're going to see a lot of consultants, QMS consultants, who definitely have something to sell you. There's very few QMS, ISO 9000, AS9100 consultants are going to say, yeah, you know what, maybe you don't really need to do this. So I think what we're trying to do here is bring a counterpoint, right, and say, hey, what's a balanced look at these issues from people who we're not actually trying to sell anybody anything right now.
And that's why we went the direction we did with this episode.
Yep.
We're not here to make a decision for you. We're here to let you know, I think, that you're not in this alone, that everybody's going through this or goes through this. You may be on the other side of it. You may have already made your decision. You may be happy with it, or you may have regretted it.
Yeah.
Or you may be ambivalent. All of those things are okay. But there are resources out there. There are people out there beyond the consultants with whom you can speak, who have lived it, have the experiences with contracting that you can talk to if you network and you actually talk to people within the industry. And that's what I hope to continue to bring together for folks so that they can have those resources.
You said it so well. No, talking to people who have done it, whether it's at a trade show or friends or through a network of people, it really it gives you a different perspective than what you're going to get from the internet, which is full of people trying to sell you stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So as we wind this up, it is time to go. I could do this all day. But Miss Ariel, do you have any closing thoughts?
I think companies really need to think about their brand and trust that they build with their customers, and that should play a big role in your opinion on what you're going to do going forward. I think it's another tricky issue like CMMC where we might not fully be bought into it, but it might come a time where that is just a requirement you have to meet, especially if you're selling to the DoD. But basing your decisions a lot on your customers and, as you said, the ROI, I do think that is really important. And for us, that's a case-by-case basis, which that also then plays into it. There's just a lot of questions, and I think it's important to, you might be thinking questions that other people are thinking, but no one's saying it out loud. So just finding people that you can ask those questions to and not be afraid to, you're not the
Yeah.
only one.
I think that's such a great point, is to really say the scary questions out loud
Yeah.
and not keep
You're not
them,
the only one thinking it.
not keep them, not ruminate them in bed at night,
Yeah.
ruminate over them in bed. Yeah.
Sean, do you have any closing thoughts?
I have so many thoughts. I tend to come down on brand trust as the primary way to assure quality. And by brand trust, I mean like relying on customer experience and repeat customers as the primary QMS, is delivering a quality product right with our own QMS that builds brand trust is really the ultimate solution for us right now. As Ariel said, in the future, maybe somebody will force ISO 9001 on us. Or maybe we'll be tempted by some revenue opportunity, which is so huge we just can't resist it.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
That's awesome. Well, I'd like to offer a little advice, actually, because I'm in a similar place. At some point, someone may force AS9100 on us.
Yeah.
And we'll be in the exact same place that you are. Regardless of whether you're certified as AS9100, ISO 9001, some other specification, or your own internal quality management system, I absolutely believe 100% it's absolutely crucial not to create a framework for your company that is so rigid that you cannot innovate. Build in flexibility. Build in the ability to change. By the way, your quality management system should have a procedure that allows you to change, wait for it, the quality management system itself.
Right.
It is not written once and never to be changed ever again.
It's
It is
recursive.
not to be done lightly, but it should be part of your everyday to consider
Yes.
what should actually be there as the years pass. And that is priceless. Otherwise, you will be stagnate and you will no longer innovate.
Yeah, I love that. So if you're a software engineer, build recursion into your QMS. That's what I heard you say.
There you go. Folks, we hope you enjoyed it. This with our panel. We're not here to give you all the answers, but we are here to give you something to think about. First, foremost, and always. On behalf of Sean Wallace and Ariel Carlson, my delightful hosts, I am Chuck Coxhead, the RF Frontiers podcast. We will catch you next time. Dream big.